Welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and you can see we are down here in these amazing studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. Hey, look, I hope that you guys have been enjoying our episodes. We've had some amazing guests here in 2025, and as we are getting near the end of this year, hey, look, it's like this. They say when you start out, start strong, but guess what? You got to finish strong. People always remember how you finish something. So I have invited in a guest, and I'm just going to look. I don't want to tell you too much about it because I want it to be a surprise. Honestly, I didn't ask too many questions. I wanted it to be a surprise to myself. But this man's story is something that you're probably not going to run across every day, which is a good thing. You don't want to run across a lot of folks that have experienced this, but he's still standing. He's still going. He is an inspiration. He's a motivation. He is a great individual. I did get to know him for a little while we were on the fire department together. He worked on Memphis. And anyways, all I got to say is buckle up. All these years I have known him, probably close to 20, and I never knew this story. So this is going to be something kind of awesome. So at this point, I would like to introduce to you guys my guest this week, Mr. Lynn Miller. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty well this morning.
Thank you for coming down here to the SRP studios.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. So look, have you ever done a podcast?
I have not.
Well, I hate to tell you this. You've started out at the top of the mountain. You have nowhere to go but down, so you might as well just cut your losses here and say, all right, we've done the best there is, right?
That's right.
Just kidding.
That's right.
So I like to think that. Anyways, I'll work towards that. So there are a lot of things we're going to cover on this, and it's just an incredible story, but I got to know you a little bit when we were on the Memphis Fire Department. We rode on the ambulance a little while, which I know there's a story you'd like to share about that later.
Yes.
And, so you embrace the days and you enjoy your life. And, a lot of stuff can be things that you could fret about, complain about, but there's a lot to be thankful for every day. And I think that it's fair to say your story is one of those moments in life. And every once in a while, some of us will have that moment where when we look back, it's like, whatever it is you're going through now, you can look at that other time and say, dang, I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to be healthy. I'm glad to be going because things could not have been this good. And That's perspective. And you definitely have that in spades on this. But before we jump into your amazing story, I always like to let my listeners, my viewers know a little bit about the guest I have. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and family members and stuff.
Okay. I grew up in Greenville, Tennessee. It's up near the border with North Carolina, up in the mountains.
Okay.
And it's famous for being the home of the 17th President of the United States, Andrew Johnson.
Okay.
Davy Crockett was born there. And it's a real historic town. There's a Presbyterian church on Main Street that has a cannonball embedded in the bricks that was shot there during the Civil War.
Really?
Yeah.
That is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's
wow.
That's a place I always take people when they want to see Greenville, to see the cannonball. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, but I grew up there. I went to high school at Greenville High. I have my mom and my dad, a brother and a sister.
Are you the oldest?
No, my sister's the oldest. I'm the middle guy who was left to his own devices.
Oh, yeah. Well, the middle one's always a wild card. It could go either way. It could go either way.
That's right. My sister was the only girl, and she was the oldest, so she got the attention. My brother was born with asthma, and he required a lot of attention, so I was kind of left in the middle. So I was an explorer. I was almost a Huck Finn type.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's not always a bad thing. Being in the mountains, probably plenty to explore.
Oh, yeah. Caves. Of course, they were forbidden, but it didn't keep me from exploring them.
That explains a lot about being a firefighter. I mean, you got to have a little bit of crazy in there sometimes.
You really do.
Yeah.
And enjoy the adrenaline rushes you get occasionally, yeah.
So when you were growing up, what kind of hobbies did you have?
Sports.
What'd you play?
I played basketball. I was short, but I was a guard. And I played tennis. Tennis was baseball, a lot of baseball.
Tennis, what year was that? Because tennis really didn't grow a lot until...
No, we're talking about the wooden racket days.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, wow, that was a sport that was probably not mainstream, so that's kind of unique.
We used Stan Smith wooden rackets and Stan Smith tennis shoes.
Wow.
Yeah, the old wooden racket days.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were playing sports and that, did you think this is what I'm going to do for a living, or was it just a hobby?
A hobby, and I left one of my biggest hobbies was fishing. So I had a lot. I knew every pond within a few miles of the house, and I would ride my bikes to them when I was a kid and fish and the Nolichucky River up there that just has been on all the news with all the flooding. I cut my teeth fishing on that river.
Yeah, we're going to definitely talk about some of that because I know you've went back and done some humanitarian efforts to help those individuals that were affected from Hurricane Helene. I think is how they say the name.
Yes, Helene.
I kept calling it Helen, but man, hey, look, I'm from Mississippi, so so you got into fishing. Was there a person that got you into that, or just something that you grew toward?
My dad.
Your dad?
Yeah, my dad got me interested in fishing, and then he quit. But I had a passion for it.
How old were you?
I was about 6.
Okay. Was it any kind of fish in particular? Catfish, bass, crappie, everything?
Started out with bluegill because they were easy to catch, and we were kind of poor, didn't have a lot of money, so I could catch my own bait, grasshoppers and worms, and go to this farm pond and have fun with the bluegill. But then one day, I had this pretty big grasshopper on my hook, too big for a bluegill actually, and I made a cast out there, and it didn't land exactly where I wanted it, so I'm winding it in real fast, and kapow! I caught about a 3-pound bass. Well,
did that spark a fire?
Sparked a fire.
Yeah.
And ended up earning a living.
Yeah.
Bass fishing and owning a boat dock. So
it's so funny because I've heard people say that you've got to have, and I want to ask about the boat dock and stuff, but you got to be a little bit lazy to want to be a fisherman. But to me, I've always thought if you're out there casting constantly and having to troll around, that's a lot of physical work. I was extra lazy. I wanted to jug fish or trout line. Just run it, come back later, see if there's something on there. It would be easier for me, right? But I mean, what you're doing, and especially bass fishing, there's a lot of technique to that. So that inspired you to get a boat dock. And how old were you when that happened?
I was, it was after college and 3 years of professional school.
What kind of professional school?
I moved to Memphis in 1979. I was accepted to medical school at the University of Tennessee in Memphis.
What were you going to be?
Pediatrician.
Get out of here.
No.
That is, so look, whenever I'm being surprised, y'all know that I did not ask him a lot of the details and stuff. I mean, I have my little area that we hung out and I knew you some, but had no idea. Was there any other doctors in your family?
No. I was, matter of fact, the first one in my family to ever get a college degree.
Wow.
Yes.
So how do you go from fishing to doctor?
Actually, yeah, I guess it was that way. Growing up, I always thought I'd like to be a doctor.
Okay.
And matter of fact, I got in trouble once for giving my sister's doll's injection of Kool-Aid.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That is so funny.
Yeah, I got a good spanking for that one.
Man, that's just another little layer of Lynn that I had no idea about. So you graduate from college. What'd you get a degree in?
A degree in biology, and I was on staff at East Tennessee State University as a graduate assistant teaching freshman biology when I got accepted to medical school. And I got accepted to 2 schools, and I came to Memphis. So.
Wow. And how old were you at that time?
4 years in the Air Force, 4 years of college.
So this was post-Air Force?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll pause on that because I had no idea about the medical stuff. And the truth is, funny fact, real true story. Out of high school, man, I was not a good student in school. I just got by. But it was because I was a class clown is what they call me, and in other words. And so I was like, I think I'll be a doctor. And I signed up for some classes down at Northwest. And what I found in the first semester was chemistry, biology, all these. I was like, that's really hard. And so then I was like, all right, I need something that is more accommodating to my weekend life at that time. And so I became a criminal justice major. And it turns out you don't have to work too hard for that. So I was able to pass that. But it was interesting. And then later, of course, I became a paramedic. So it did kind of come semi-full circle, not necessarily to the doctor realm. All right, so then coming out of high school, you were not quite ready then to do the doctor thing. So getting out of high school, what were you thinking you were going to do, and what made you go to the military?
Well, I wanted to go to school because I loved school. I liked studying, and I had a goal in my mind, but my family couldn't afford to send me to college, so I worked around looking for other work and to save up some money, and it was during the Vietnam War, and the draft lottery thing came up, and I said, well, I don't want to go in the Army, so I started talking to the Air Force recruiter. Yeah. And at that time, they only had the GI Bill that would pay for your college, and I said, well, this is a good way to get college, and a good way maybe not to have to go step on a landmine in Vietnam. Yeah. So I joined the Air Force. I was 19.
Yeah, I don't know if you've picked up on the episodes that came out in November. Actually had a Vietnam veteran from the Air Force, and his plane ran out of fuel, and he got captured by the Viet Cong and was a POW for 14 months.
Oh my!
By the Viet Cong. It was a very amazing story. But yeah, unless you're a pilot, chances are you're not going to necessarily be right there, because that's what I went in. A lot of similarities here, Lynn. Mm-hmm. Medically interested, definitely been an outdoors person, a little bit lazier on the fishing side of things. Not only did we go on the fire department together, but you're a Yankees fan?
Oh, yes.
I'm a diehard Yankees fan.
Yes.
There's a lot of connections here, man.
There's no other team.
I mean, not in my book, even though 2024 would suggest that was probably not the best version of Yankees that I've seen in the World Series. But I agree with you, man. You know this about me, being a big diehard Yankee fan. But it's just funny how many similarities are coming together. And I was in the Air Force. So a lot of connections right there.
Right.
So when you were going into the Air Force, did you have an idea about what you wanted to do in the Air Force? Because I wanted to go in, just to let you know, and this is funny. So real fast, here it is. I'm wanting to study medical. Nah, that's going to be too hard. So I'll become a criminal justice, get an associate's degree in criminal justice. I wanted to go into the military as MP because I had one prior arrest before I was 21 that disqualified me from being a police officer in the military. So instead I got a top secret clearance and I was a satellite operator. You tell me what sense that makes.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like on the fire department. If you mess up real bad, you get promoted.
I know. It's military intelligence at its best. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I just wanted to wave people through a gate. And now you're like, here, now do your retina scan, thumbprint, and go direct these billion-dollar satellites. I'm like,
that's right.
Something's not adding up here. But that's what I ended up doing. So I was going to go in as MP. That didn't work out, but I still went in. So what were you thinking you wanted to do?
Well, they give you a test when you go in, and I scored really high on it. And so I got to pick, and I picked medical services specialist because it was in line with me wanting to eventually be a doctor. And so and I got my first choice.
Okay, how old were you at that time?
19.
So fresh out of high school, graduate. Does your mom and dad know that you're going to go in the military?
Yeah.
Are they okay with that?
Not at first. It was about 8 months after I graduated from high school before I went in the Air Force. So, but yeah, I think Dad was ready for me to leave the nest.
Really? I was just curious because being in the time that it was, Vietnam War going on, parents were not always so keen on your kid volunteering to go off somewhere. In fact, the Marine that was on my show that was in Vietnam, he was in the last episode in November. He talked about he so much didn't tell his parents that he was actually in tech school, and the tech sergeant guy was like, "Hey, look, do your parents even know you're here?" He's like, "No, I never told anybody." And so then they never even knew, and he was already in. So
right,
it happens.
A story my mother told me later was that when Dad dropped me off at the bus station to go off to the Air Force, when he got home, he threw himself on his bed and cried like a baby.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
My parents were not happy about me going in, and we weren't in wartime, but it was contentious for a minute. But then they were proud of me, so don't get me wrong on that.
Right.
So you go in, and you're going to be a medical specialist, and you go through basic training. It was basic training at San Antonio back then?
Lackland Air Force Base.
That's where I went. So not much had changed on that part of it. And then when you get out of there, where do they send you for tech school?
They sent me to Shepherd Air Force Base up in Wichita Falls, Texas.
I did a tech school there.
For medic training.
There was nothing there when I was there in the mid-'90s, so I can only imagine there was extra nothing there when you were there.
Yeah, it was it was a big desert with just a little bit of something to do. Not
right,
much.
Right. In fact, that was the first place I actually saw a real tumbleweed. I didn't know that. I thought it was just in the movies, kind of, and then all of a sudden there's several of them blowing across. I'm like, I am in the Wild West, y'all.
Yeah.
Incredible. So how long was your tech school?
It was 2 months.
Okay. Yeah. I think one of the schools I went to was around 2 months. So long enough to be there to know you don't want to be there. And so it was an experience for sure. What year was this?
1971, still in 71.
Okay. And so you are getting on the backside of the Vietnam War. Of course, you don't know that at the time.
No.
You don't know that in 1975 everything's going to kind of start shutting down, but you clearly were on the backside of it. So you finish up your tech school. And now, folks, this is where the story is going to start to begin on part of what develops you and then how you survive. And so all I'm going to say is this. Here we are. Look, we're 15 minutes into the show. And if you don't have your popcorn, you should go get your popcorn, sit down. I don't know what's about to be said, but I know this is going to be something kind of incredible. So at that time in the 70s, now that's coming out of the 60s, obviously 71, it was very common for people to hitchhike. All right. So it's just not, it was not as, it was definitely taboo today, but back then it was taboo-ish. You know, there, you could hear stories, but in the end, people did it a lot.
There was
a
lot of hitchhiking.
To the next, a lot of hitchhiking. So you don't have transportation back to Tennessee.
No.
And you finish up tech school.
Finished up tech school, and I need to get back to my hometown. I got a little bit of a break between tech school and my duty station, and I didn't have any money.
Yeah,
because I made $64 every 2 weeks.
Yeah, government doesn't pay well.
No,
it doesn't pay well. It didn't back then, still doesn't today.
No, and during our training there at Shepherd Air Force Base, it was Memorial Weekend, and they had a big parade downtown. And so they had all of us medic students marching in formation in the parade. Well, we had a high school band in front of us, a high school band behind us, playing two different songs, and we got out of step, and we were stepping on one another's heels. And,
oh my gosh!
And pretty soon it just became a joke, and we were just having a good time,
yeah.
laughing, cutting up, and weren't in formation. And, we didn't know that, but we went by the review stand with the general of the base. And
that's leaving an impression. It's like, well, I'm going to remember these guys.
Yeah, all the top brass on the base were in the review stand. And so when we got to the end of the parade, they were waiting on us.
Wow.
And they were not happy.
Yeah.
And they called us everything but children of God.
Sure.
And put us on KP. And
that's kitchen patrol for you out there that have never been in the military.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, KP was my middle name. I seem to get put on that a lot.
To wash dishes, peel potatoes.
Stir Jell-O.
Oh, that seems like so much fun.
They put me on a vat that held about 50 gallons of Jell-O, and you stirred it with a big boat paddle. Yeah.
Jeez.
But anyway, while we were in base in KP, they sent somebody into the lockers and robbed us all.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it was an inside job. So I come out of there. All the money I'd saved up to fly home and stuff was stolen out of my wallet.
Dang. And this is in basic training?
In medical school, medical school,
the tech school. The tech school.
The tech school in Shepherd.
That is some kind of something right there.
Yeah.
You can't even trust people.
No.
And
in my wallet that was stolen, I had a $100 bill that my parents sent me for Christmas. And that was the first $100 bill I ever saw.
Yeah, when y'all go in and report this, what's the response?
Things happen.
Wow.
Yeah. We don't know. There's no way for us to find out.
In today's military, if you get a little upset, they give you a yellow card. Go sit down, rest, take a deep breath,
right?
Decompress.
Right.
So it's like, oh, y'all got all your crap stole? Sucks to be you.
We figured that the general was really unhappy with us.
I would imagine so. So you're robbed. You have no money. You just spent all day in the kitchen. What you gonna do now?
Well, I'm going to head home. I think I had 2 weeks before I had to report to Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina, and which is on the way from Texas to my hometown is sort of in the trip there. So anyway, so I decided the best thing for me to do was hitchhike, and I looked at it as an adventure. Really, I was kind of excited about it.
Had you ever done that before?
First time ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last time ever?
Last time ever. Yeah.
So, I'm just sorry, prefacing the situation, but okay, so you decided to go ahead and hitchhike across town. Did you know other people that had done it before?
Yeah. I knew a couple of guys that were going to do the same thing, only they didn't have as far a trip to make as me. You know, I think mine was close to 1,000 miles.
So when you start your journey, what time of day is it?
Early morning.
Okay, so you're starting out fresh in the morning, walk as far as you need to, try to catch a ride, go as far as you can.
Right, walk off base and start hitchhiking. And, Wichita Falls is not a great metropolis, so.
Not at all.
Yeah, but I managed to get a ride here or there, short rides. Finally got through Texas, and I caught one long ride in Arkansas. I think that guy took me 300 or 400 miles, the best I can remember. But it was mostly little chips here and little chips there, and 30 miles here, 20 miles there, 10 miles here, maybe 2 or 3 miles. But I'd been on the hitchhiking trail for about a day and a half.
So did you sleep?
Slept some in the cars,
Yeah.
When I was getting a ride, I'd doze off in the seat over there.
So you just continue. So you didn't stop in at a hotel or anything?
No, I didn't have money for that.
Yeah. So I was guessing probably not, but just just continuous for a day and a half kind of.
I had a little bit of money. Enough to buy me something to eat, every now and then. But I didn't have any frivolous money for motels.
Right. So, all right. So you've been going for a day and a half, and then where do you find yourself?
It was around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning at night, pitch dark, no moon, very few stars. But I'd finally got to Newport, Tennessee.
Okay.
Newport is 21 miles from my hometown.
So you were close.
I was close.
I mean, less than a marathon.
Yeah. I came all that distance, nothing out of the ordinary except this one guy smoked all my cigarettes. I was a smoker back then. I'm not now. I gave him up a long time ago.
Yeah.
But he said that was his pay for giving me such a good ride.
Well, I mean, I guess to a point he kind of had you, right? So it's like, whatever. All right, if that's going to be what it costs me.
Yeah, I didn't smoke much anyway, so no big deal.
Right.
So I make it to Newport. Now, Newport has a reputation, and there's some good folks in Newport. There's some really bad folks in Newport. That moonshiner, Popcorn Sutton, that's his home area.
Okay.
And my dad, when he was a child, grew up in Newport, and he said that he had to fight almost every day. It's a rough Cock County.
Yeah. Okay.
It
So where is that in location in Tennessee? If you're looking at Memphis, way over here on the far west side of the state.
Far east.
It's the far east side. So you're closer to like Chattanooga.
Further north.
Further north. All right. So you go over and then up.
Yeah, about 2.5 hour drive north of Chattanooga.
Okay.
You go through Knoxville, and then Newport's about 40 miles.
Just locating
east.
the demographic for all, because I have listeners all over the world, just so they kind of get it. And that's the Appalachian mountains and stuff.
Right,
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So that's where you're at.
Yeah. Cock County is right in the mountains.
Okay.
And as is my hometown in Greenville.
Okay.
So actually, they border the North Carolina state line. So as far east as you can go in Tennessee.
Okay. So you're 21 miles out. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
All right.
And you're still on this journey.
Yes.
So I guess somebody had dropped you off somewhere. And then you're just continuing walking.
I got dropped off at the exit off of I-40 there in Newport. You go 10 miles past where I was dropped off now, and the road's missing. That flood washed out that entire interstate for about 20 miles.
From the recent hurricane.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But they let me off that exit, and so I started walking towards Greenville. I knew I was getting close. And I walked through the downtown area, down Main Street.
I do have one question. Now, this is hindsight 2020, and I want to hear all this part here, but did you have family members you could have called to come get you at that point? Or were you just so set on, I'm going to finish this journey?
I probably could have, but I don't think my mom and dad had a phone at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have cell phones and all that, of course.
Sure.
Maybe I could have.
I know that's like we're going back in time here over 50 years. I get it. But I'm just like, it kind of hits me. It's like you're a rock's throw away, so to speak, from where you've come from. And it just, to me, at some point, it'd just be like, you know what? I'm just going to call somebody to come get me. Just be done with this thing. But you're so close. You're probably thinking, couple more rides and I'm done. Right.
Well, every trip I made home when I was in the Air Force, I would try to surprise them.
Okay, that's the backstory to the backstory.
Yeah. So I never warned them that I was coming, and that's probably why I didn't call for a ride.
Makes perfect sense to me.
I like to walk up to the house and have the happy reunion, everybody hugging. And
if they only knew the surprise you were about to give them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So continue on, sir.
So I walked through town from where I was let off the interstate. I walked about 3 miles, and I went through downtown, and you make a left turn on Highway 321, and there's a bridge that crosses the Pigeon River right there in downtown Newport. And I was standing on that bridge with my thumb out, and like I said, it's midnight, 1 o'clock, somewhere in that area. It's late at night, and I'm worn out. It's been a long trip, and I'm tired. I guess I stood on that bridge for maybe 10 minutes because there wasn't a lot of traffic at that time, and then this car pulled up. It was a big car. I think it was a big Pontiac. All the cars back then were big.
Sure
like
they were. Now. Yeah.
And anyway, it was a car that had 4 guys in it. They were probably around my age, maybe 1 or 2 a little older than me. And the guy on the passenger side rolled down his window and says, "Where are you headed?" I said, "I'm going to Greenville." And the driver says, "Well, we're going to Greenville. We'll take you." And I should not have done it.
Yeah.
Because I knew better.
I mean, was there a flag? Because, I mean, like you've been hitchhiking this whole time. What was different about this moment?
Well, 4 people, and at that hour, and they just happened to be going where I'm going. And the smart thing would have been not to get in a car with 4.
So I get hindsight, but are you thinking?
That's hindsight.
Yeah, that's hindsight. Yeah. But did you have those 6 cents kick in at that time?
No.
Okay, you're just thinking I'll get home.
I was ready to go home.
Yeah, I got you.
And so I jumped. They told me to get in the back, and I jumped in the back seat between 2 fellas. and they headed towards Greenville for about a mile. And then they turned off of the road to Greenville and headed back into the boonies. And I said, look, fellas, if you're not going to Greenville now, just let me out and I'll catch me another ride. I've been along the road a long time. I'm ready to go home. And the driver says, I'm just about out of gas. So-and-so, I forget what the guy's name was, but he said he's got a full tank in his car, so we're going to go to the house and get his car, and that's the car we're taking to Greenville. I'm thinking, well, okay. So we keep driving down this winding country road, and not very many houses. It's kind of remote. Mm-hmm. And they drove about 5-6 miles, and I said, look, just let me out, and I'll catch another ride, because you guys not going to go now, and I'm ready to go home, go to bed. Mm-hmm. They said, oh, no, we're not got much further. We're going to get this car. Well, so they kept on driving, and on the way, now in this next segment, the guy sitting on my right, he says, my girlfriend's got $50 in her purse. He said, I'm going to call her and get her over to the house and take her to the back bedroom, and while we're back there, y'all take the money and we'll split it.
Sounds like true love.
Yeah, and it, then
nothing weird about that, boys.
Yeah, I was not feeling too comfortable up to this point, but after that, I'm saying, well, if he's going to rob his girlfriend,
what kind of characters?
Yeah, they're going to rob this girlfriend. They don't have good intentions for me.
No,
I am not in a good spot, and so they drove on, and I didn't say anything else, but they had their plan in place for this girl. I'm thinking, well, how long did it take to get the girl over there and then get her money? But anyway, it was obvious to me that they had other plans than going to Greenville. So we pulled up. We must have driven 10 to 15 miles, and they pulled up to this small house, wood frame house. It was up on a hill, and they parked down at the bottom of the hill. And so everybody started getting out, and I got out, and I said, well, fellas, I'm just going to go. I need to get to Greenville. And that's when one of them got me on each arm and says, you're not going anywhere. Mm. I said, okay. I'd really like to go. They said, no, you get they used a lot of profanity, and mm-hmm. I don't use those words, but there was a lot of profanity, and they told me to get I'm going to call it a butt.
Yeah.
They told me to get my butt up in that house, and so they escorted me and took me up to that house.
So in that moment right there, capture that for everybody. What starts to race through your mind? Obviously, you're not in a good spot.
I know I'm a prisoner. Yeah. I know I've been abducted at the very least. Kidnapped is another word I guess you could use.
Sure.
I knew they had bad intentions for me. They're going to rob his girlfriend. I know they're not going to do a stranger any favors. And
were these big guys?
They were all about my size.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just outnumbered, obviously.
Was outnumbered. And so they took me up. The house had only one entrance, and it was on the side of the house, and it had about 4 or 5 steps. And when you come to the top of the steps, they led me through a door, and you're in a kitchen with a table and chairs, and then to the left there was a living room, mm-hmm. had a couch over against the wall, and they took me in there and they said, "Get your
tail,
get your tail over there on that couch, and be quiet." I said, "Okay." So they all went in the kitchen, and luckily for me, it turns out later there was the kitchen was here, and then the next room was the living room, and there was a wall between the two.
All 4 left you?
Yes, all 4 went over into the kitchen.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That high IQ's out there.
No. After they saw me sitting on the couch, they all went in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. There was a wall between the living room and the kitchen, a big opening, maybe 10 feet wide, but then a wall. Mm-hmm. And the table was behind the wall. And so they went around, and I could hear them in the kitchen talking, and I'm sitting there trying to come up with a strategy. I'm looking around to see a good way out. And I heard them in there whispering.
They're trying to figure out what they're going to do.
They were figuring out what they're going to do with me. And I didn't like that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm not going to go down. I wasn't scared. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest with you. I was not scared. I was concerned. I knew I was in a bad place, but I wasn't
petrified.
I wasn't petrified. I wasn't paralyzed with fear.
Because people will do that, right? They'll freeze up.
Yeah.
Whenever they are just scared to death, literally, mm-hmm. they can't function.
Yeah.
And so you still had your wits about you.
Yeah, I still had my wits about me. I was thinking the whole time, and I thought, well, I'm going to go in there and find out what they're whispering about.
So you're yeah. So hey guys, my name's Lynn. Got some questions for you.
Yeah, and not only that, the door that I came in was
to the right.
To the right.
Yeah.
And so I thought if I need to, maybe I can make a mad dash for that door. But I didn't like that idea because I'd have to get the door open and get out of it, and they weren't that far away. So that was an option that I'd already thought about, but I was looking for other options. Mm-hmm. So I walked into the kitchen to see what they were whispering about, and they all turned around and gave me a real good cuss. And then two of them got up there and they took me back in the living room and shoved me down the couch and said, look, you're going to have to start doing what you're told, or it's not going to go well for you around here, or go good, they said. And I just nodded my head. I didn't say anything, and they went back around to their little conference round at the kitchen table. And so I'm looking around for weapons.
There you go.
I'm determined I'm not going to go down without a fight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to try my best to get out that door, and I started looking around for weapons. Well, I spotted a brass-looking lamp. I thought if I can get that, I can beat off some people pretty good with that lamp. Didn't see anything else that I could use for a weapon, but I did have in my mind to grab that thing up. And so while I'm going through my mind all these things, I've probably been in that cabin for about an hour.
Wow, they kept you in that room just in an hour.
Yeah, they were in there eating. At one time, one of them went to the car, and I was hoping if he cranks up and leaves, then that's
3 on 1.
That's 3 on 1 then, and I may just grab that lamp stand.
Take a shot.
And take my shot.
There you go.
I've got to do something. So I'm sitting there thinking, and what am I going to do? And I think there was some divine intervention at this time. Nobody ever convinced me otherwise, because even though I knew that I could maybe get out that door, I didn't know where I was. I'd never been there before. And the only way I could run would be down the road, and they had cars.
Sure.
You know? And so it'd be easy for them to chase me. And I was really concerned about my escape route. Well, I'm sitting there thinking about all these things, and a train passed by behind the house. I didn't know there was a railroad track back there, but now I do. I said, there's a railroad back there. If I can get to that, they can't chase me in a car. So all I got to do is get out of this house, run back there till I hit the tracks, and take off running. I'd already figured out these guys weren't in any kind of shape, like I was. And so while I'm looking around and trying to think, I kept looking at this window that was by the couch, and it was cracked about 6 inches. And there was a screen behind it. And I said, a man might dive through that screen. Couldn't dive through that window, but I bet I could dive through that screen. I had a duffel bag. That was my only luggage. It's a little like a gym.
I was actually wondering about that in my head. I'm wondering, surely you had some luggage with you, and so what are you going to do with that? So you have...
like a little gym bag.
Okay, all right.
I had a little gym bag. I had a uniform. I was hitchhiking in civvies, but I had a uniform in my gym bag and some odds and ends, I had it with me, and they hadn't taken that away from me. I still haven't figured out why, but they weren't the smartest kidnappers, I don't think. So anyway, I finally, when I heard the train, I knew I had an escape route. I decided it was time to move, time to do something. I wasn't just going to sit there and let them take control. So I eased over there, and I raised the window up high enough where I thought I could dive through it, and I quick ran over towards the wall where the kitchen was. I got a running start, and I dove through the screen. Now, I didn't know what was on the other side.
I was about to ask, do you even know where you're diving into?
I had no idea what's through that window.
That's an action movie.
Yeah, but I knew what was in the room where I was at.
So you were taking and weighing your options. You're like, this is going to be a better move.
That's exactly why. I'd already thought it all out, and I decided that whatever's behind that screen, I would deal with it when I got out there.
I like it.
Yeah, and my other option was to try to run by them, get out the door, and I didn't like that so much.
At that point, I would imagine your heart rate is going up because now you're making a decision to take action.
Sure.
And it's not even so much fear as it is adrenaline.
Adrenaline, yeah.
And when you got adrenaline pumping, you can do superhuman things at that moment.
Sure.
For a period of time, you're going to go next level. So here it is. You go running, you dive through this window. I'm assuming it's a beautiful swan dive right through the screen. You missed the glass and everything, right?
Well, I think I hit one of my knees on the windowsill on the way through, but it wasn't a serious injury. But lo and behold, I landed on grass and soft ground. There was no junk pile.
Did you do like a barrel roll into it?
I did, and hit and rolled and got up and started. It was dark now. You got to remember, it's pitch dark. I can't see my hand hardly in front of my face. But I knew the direction I heard the train. I knew there was a railroad track up there, and so I started running that direction. Well, I'm running as hard as I can go toward the railroad. And just in the nick of time, I saw a glint of something off of a barbed wire. There was a fence around the railroad, and I hit the ground and rolled under the bottom thing. Now they're outside yelling and cussing and chasing after me, but I rolled under the fence, made it okay, and the tracks were right there, and I headed what I thought was back towards town, and they got across the fence and they were chasing me, and they told me pretty clearly what they were going to do to me when they caught me. One of them was going to cut my throat.
Okay.
They were going to cut my liver up and feed it to the catfish in the Pigeon River.
Well.
Yeah. They were going to disembowel me. And,
they were doing a lot of very descriptive screaming at you.
Yes, they were, and it was pretty clear that they were going to kill me. I thought they were going to kill me from the get-go if they had a chance.
Sure.
And so, yeah. Then their plan was clear. They were going to kill me if they caught me. But I'd just gone through basic training. They ran our eyeballs out.
Yeah.
And all the calisthenics and push-ups and chin-ups. And
you're 19.
And I'm 19. And in medic training at Shepherd Air Force Base, I was in medic training. They sent us out to the Oklahoma desert somewhere, and we were having to train carrying, and they always pick the fattest guy in the squad to be on the stretcher, and we trained obstacle courses carrying the people on stretchers.
And then you were ready for Memphis, and I'm sorry that's a bad joke, but it is true. So you were ready when you came to Memphis. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
I was definitely ready.
They prepped you way back then.
They did.
You are in not just 19 years old, but you're in great shape, physical shape.
Great shape, strong, could run and run and run and run. And so I hit the ground running got that railroad track, and they just simply were not able to catch me.
Yeah.
And I was leaving them behind. I ran at a good pace until I could no longer hear their footsteps, or I couldn't hear their cussing, and I knew that they weren't going to catch me.
Yeah. And you still couldn't see much. So how do they know that how do they, one, know that they're really on your trail? And then two, how do you not trip on a railroad track? Because clearly at any minute you could have just stepped wrong, and then you're in a situation.
Running on cross ties is not an easy thing.
I would not imagine.
Even in the light. Again, the good Lord was taking care of me. My mother's prayed for me my whole life, and that's one of the main reasons I'm still here.
Guardian angel was working overtime that night.
Yes, things just worked for me because I couldn't see. I could see maybe starlight glinting off of the rails, the railroad rails, but I couldn't see much. What my biggest fear when I was running down the track was that these guys know the area I don't. There may be a crossroads that I'm running towards where they could drive their car down and be waiting on me when I got to the crossroads. That was always in the back of my mind. And
that's an interesting thought. I don't know a lot of people would think that far out when they're in the middle of that kind of moment. But you had a lot of motivation to get out of there.
Yeah.
And I think worst case scenario, so you said you were surrounded by woods.
Yeah.
You could always dive into the woods and hide.
Sure.
Well,
the right side was woods. The left side was a precipice, and it was like a 50 to 100 foot almost cliff straight down.
Dang.
And at times the Pigeon River, you could see a little bit of light glinting off it. So the left was not an option. The right was at times it was, but not at all times.
Yeah.
But I was concerned because I couldn't see if there's a crossroads unless there was a house there or something. I didn't see another house after I left there. So the whole way down that track. Didn't see any lights, but I was cautious. If I came to a crossroad, I knew that they could be there waiting. But I never saw a crossroad.
You'd have never been seen again.
No, they were going to kill me.
And then nobody would have known where you were ever.
No.
So how long are you running down this railroad track? You have any kind of concept of time?
Well, when in a situation like that, you kind of exaggerate. Mm-hmm. You tend to maybe.
I think you get tunnel vision too, so everything kind of closes out, and you're just
right. It seemed like I'd ran for 10 miles or more.
Yeah,
it may have been 7 or 8. It was a long way.
Yeah,
it was not a short distance. So I'm going to say somewhere between 7 and 12 miles. It took quite a while to run. And I got to the point where I would walk some because I knew they were so far behind. I'd have to walk and rest up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I could run 10 miles back then. But when they first started chasing me, I was sprinting.
Yeah.
And so I was out of breath.
Yeah.
And so I would kind of walk and then jog and walk and jog. But so I'm going along this railroad track, and all of a sudden I come up to a bridge, railroad trestle where the tracks cross the Pigeon River. And it didn't have sides. It was just cross ties and rails.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
And it's dark.
And it's dark. It is really dark. It's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning by now. And you could see what little bit of light was glimmering off the water between the cross ties. So you could definitely fall between cross ties. It was slow going.
How far do you think it was to the bottom?
It was at least 35, 40 feet to the water.
May not kill you unless you landed on something bad.
Right. What brought this story to mind recently was the flooding we just had up there. I saw a picture somebody posted on Facebook where that bridge had collapsed.
And that's the one that gave you the escape.
That's the bridge that gave me the escape.
Wow.
I saw that bridge in that picture, and all these memories came flooding back to me.
Wow.
You know, and that bridge now the rails are suspended above the collapsed bridge, just the rails hanging up there, and it's kind of interesting. But anyway, it was a long bridge. It was probably 150 feet long, wooden trestle. And I got about halfway across that thing, and I'm going at a snail's pace, and I thought, if a train comes, I am not in a good spot here. And so then I had to plan an escape route if a train came, and my plan was just to drop down between cross ties and hang on to the train that passed. But as luck would have it, I got across the bridge okay. And
you're a pretty clear thinker. It's like you're thinking in the moment what you're doing, but then what you might need to do in a few more minutes if something takes place. That's unique for anybody, much less in a stressful situation, much less being 19.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, though, that you're growing up in the woods, in the mountains, being independent, kind of doing your own thing, being adventurous. See how I'm tying all this back together here?
Right.
I think all of those were just building blocks and tools that you needed for that moment for complete survival.
Yeah.
And it was coming together, and maybe you didn't actually have a conscious thought that's what was happening. But hearing it now, it's very clear that's what was taking place.
Right. I'm sure there's probably something I could have done different, but I think overall my planning worked pretty well.
You're here.
Yeah. You couldn't plan for that bridge because I didn't know it was there. I'd never been there in my life. But, and I was up way out on it before I finally stopped and said, wait a minute, you need to have an exit plan in case a train comes.
Something takes place. Because then at that point, you're halfway. So you're going to make it or you're not going to make it because you ain't turning around to go back.
No.
And so you make it over the side of the bridge. And then what's the rest of that path to get you home? Because at that point, it's clear that you had escaped the immediate threat.
Right.
And then you just had to figure out where you were and how to get back.
Sure. Well, after I got across the bridge, I came up on a road and I turned right on the road, and about a mile later, I'm back in Newport.
Wow.
Not far from
and
where
you didn't know that that's where you were. It's just,
no.
That's more of that divine intervention moment.
Yeah. Another interesting story about that bridge I'd like to touch on
Sure.
While we're at the bridge. Years later, maybe 35 or 40 years later, my dad took me to Newport. He wanted to show me some of the places he grew up when he was a boy. Mm-hmm. He took me underneath that railroad trestle to a house that was right underneath it, and he lived in that house while he was a boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Did you mention to your dad that was it? And
Yeah.
what is his reaction at that moment?
He said, "You've got to be kidding me." He said they used to hot cinders off of the steam engines when they had those would fall on their house sometime and burn a hole in the roof. They were so close to that track. Yeah. So I thought it was pretty cool that. So it's
what
like
a tie.
like
what
going,
a circle back.
like
on
going
that.
full circle there.
Yeah, I know.
You know, yeah.
That's wild.
Father and son, and when my dad was growing up there, one day a son of his was going to be running from danger and cross that bridge. I think
It's almost as though
Yeah.
it was protecting you a little bit. The spirit was there, and God's like, you know what? Mm-hmm. This is your roots here. We're going to guide you all the way on through this. You come out, you go out the other side, you see your path home.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so clearly you're surprising your family when you walk through that door. What time of day is that?
It was it didn't take me long to get back on the same bridge. I took the time to go to a gas station. I changed out of the clothes I was in into a uniform, Air Force uniform, went back to the bridge. I don't know why I didn't go to the police.
I was going to ask that eventually.
It never occurred. Now, when I look back, I think that may be the dumbest thing I did. Because I should have gone to the police, but I didn't. I was in a hurry to get to Greenville, and
you're still thinking about going to bed.
Yeah, and it's still 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's dark, and it didn't even occur to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I didn't. I didn't go to the police. Got it back on that bridge, and I hadn't been there 3 minutes, and a guy in a brand new 240Z stopped, and an older gentleman gave me a ride all the way to Greenville. So
you still went ahead and got another ride?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Lynn, that was like a flood of thoughts. It's like you bite that sandwich and it's got these hot peppers in it, and you're like, that is too hot. And he's like, let me try these peppers over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so then are you arriving at your house? Is it daylight yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. And so I just kind of hung out, and I didn't want to wake them up, And
there's so many things here. So you escape certain death of kidnappers, and that night could have ended a lot of different ways worse. Mm-hmm. And you have this harrowing escape, running down the railroad track, make it back into town, change out clothes, get another ride, finally show up at your parents' place, and you're just kind of like chilling. You're like, we'll wait for the sun to come up.
Yeah.
So the next day it comes up, you go in, you talk to them.
Oh, yeah, they were excited to see me.
When does the conversation eventually come up? Oh, and by the way, got this crazy thing that just took place right up the road.
Yeah, I didn't spring it on them right away. But when I told him, my dad, who grew up in Cocke County, and he'd been known to have a fist fight or two.
Sure.
He was ready to go up and do battle.
I was wondering if the retribution was a thought here.
Yeah. Dad was fired up, but I told him, I said, Dad, I couldn't find that place. It was dark, and he made a lot of twists and turns, and I said, I could probably never find that place, so no reason to go up and try to hunt trouble.
Yeah.
And but my dad, during my lifetime, I once watched him knock out Jackie Fargo, a professional wrestler. So my dad was nobody to fool with.
Yeah.
But I talked him out of going up there, and I said we'd never find him. I didn't want my dad to get in trouble mostly.
Yeah.
So, Mom was crying and hugging me and telling me I was never going to hitchhike again. And I said, you can count on that. So I went the next day and bought a car.
Well, if you didn't learn your lesson on that one, Lynn, I mean, it is crazy, though, that you went ahead and still finished up the trip hitchhiking. But it's such an amazing escape story that very few people could ever even imagine having themselves be able to think like you did, to take action like you did. A lot of people freeze up. And I've told my kids, I've told other folks, die on that hill, fight then. Don't wait and hope that they're going to do the right thing if there is a situation such as that. Take yourself and self-rescue every time.
Right.
And that's clearly what you did in that moment. So never did tell the police, huh?
I never went to the police.
Wow.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I never tried to find that house again until...
So you did try to find it again later?
About 5 years ago.
Okay.
I was in Newport, and my wife was with me, and she said, let's try to find that house. And so I said, okay. I had no clue. I looked at Google Maps. I tried to find the houses that were right on the railroad track, and that house maybe not be there anymore. It wasn't a well-kept house.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I never found it.
So the fascinating part of this is, if these guys were willing to do this with you, the other question comes to mind. Had they done it before? Did they do it after?
I bet when I was not their first victim, I would almost guarantee that.
Yeah.
Don't know. It's a guess. But they seemed to be comfortable in
kidnapping and the thought of killing.
Yeah. It didn't seem to be a foreign concept to them. And
wow.
The fact that he was going to rob his own girlfriend, $50 back in early 70s was...
That's a good bit of money.
Good bit of money.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how does that change your life from that day forward? Do you have PTSD from it?
No. I've never had that. And I've seen, in the fire department, you see gruesome stuff.
Sure you do.
And as a medic, I saw gruesome stuff. And I've been one of the blessed ones that I don't dream about the stuff, and I don't have PTSD from it. But I think the main thing it did was maybe appreciative of the fact that I was resourceful, and that I never gave up and kept on going, and made me realize I needed a car. and it also wires me up that I don't need to put myself in those kind of positions again. Yeah. It's something I wouldn't want to go through again, but I did learn from it, and it's a good story to tell, and maybe it's a good example to other people how that you never give up.
Yeah,
and you take as much control of a situation as you can.
That's a good point. And that's actually kind of what was running through my mind was, you know, I reflect back on some moments on the fire department where if things would have went one way or the other, I may not be here. There was an accident on 240. Mm-hmm. I was working in a car. I heard screech and I was paying attention. My head was on a swivel and I heard the screech just in time. I jumped over a guardrail. Car slammed into the car where I was in front of and would have hit me. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it would kill me, but it probably would have killed me. It was coming pretty quick. And it didn't really affect me because the truth is the weird, funny thing about firefighting, EMS work is if you're paying attention, you feel like you're in control. Even when things are out of control, you still feel comfortable in your thought process because you've trained and you've seen stuff and you work on it. The situation you were in, I could see how a person would feel complete, like their life is completely out of control. They do not have control of the situation because there's no way you've prepared to be kidnapped, and there's no way that you're going to know that you're in the woods in the middle of the night and you can't find your way out. And now all of a sudden you got to try to make this daring escape and you got to run from them and you hope things work out and you hope that you can find your way back to where you need to be. There's no way you prepare for that. And so I think the story from this that I would want people to take is, whenever you find yourself in a tough spot, and it's not necessarily being kidnapped, but it's a situation where life is kind of built up on you and you don't think you can figure out the next thing. And you don't know that things are going to be okay because in your moment, you didn't know that things were going to be okay when all that was taking place. But you never quit working. You never quit thinking. You never quit taking action. And I think that's a big key to life. And I think in the end, and this is important, and I'm not saying everybody's going to have this, but it is important if you do have faith, because in the end, there are some things we can't control and we can't explain. And that's where faith comes in and plays such a big role in us being able to feel comfortable in our heart, knowing that this next thing's going to work out. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep doing the things I can do that come to my mind that I can think of. But I have faith things are going to work out. I have a whole nother story that I could go into about being broke down in Voodoo Village sometime, but I'm not going to go into it here because this is your story. But it's similar in the sense that you find yourself in a spot sometimes in life and you think to yourself, I'm not going to get out of this.
Right.
But you're really not going to get out of that if you quit
That's right.
thinking positive and trying to do something.
Another key at any phase of your life, whenever you're doing anything, always be aware of your surroundings. Mm-hmm. I could very easily let that train go by and not make any note of it.
That's true. You know? That is so true.
And so you always got to be aware of your surroundings, what's going on, and so that you're not surprised. Mm-hmm. So that's something I've always tried to do. It really helps you when you're fishing.
That's a good point.
I'm always aware of what's going on around me. I don't miss anything.
You don't get bit by a snake either.
No. But you talk about faith. At that time, I was not, going to church and I was young and doing that sort of thing, but since I've learned that putting your trust in God, that's where it needs to be.
Yeah. And
when you do that, you don't have to worry either, because we're cautioned in the Bible not to worry, to give your worries over. And so I don't say I'll never worry, but I seldom worry.
Yeah.
And and having a positive attitude towards things is one of the keys to not worrying.
And not giving up. And I think not giving up helps you stay positive. The moment you give up, you're going to sink into a negative mindset. And then that's going to affect your actions, your thoughts, everything. So great story on all that. But that's not what defines Lynn Miller. That was a moment in Lynn Miller's life. And I was curious as to how it affected you later in life. But it sounds like you just adjusted, moved on. So I guess the rest of your 4 years in the Air Force was less eventful.
Yes. but I'm one of those guys that things just happen to me.
Yeah.
I got volumes of stories of things that happen. Nothing as dramatic as that one maybe, but things just happen to me. So I've had a lot of adventures in the Air Force. I had adventures in college, and they're just great memories.
Yeah, you got robbed before you left tech school.
Yeah.
That's how you started your trip.
Little those guys know they shanghaied a guy that didn't have any money in his pocket.
Honestly speaking, that's what started the series of events, because otherwise it sounds like you would have flown home and all of the rest of that would have never happened.
Yeah, it's that general's fault.
Jeez Louise. Did you ever go back and tell him? I'd be like, hey, guess what you caused, man?
No.
That's interesting. So you do your 4 years, then is that when you get on the fire department?
No, I did my 4 years in the Air Force, and then I went to college and the GI Bill paid for my.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I got a college degree in biology and minored in chemistry, and went to medical school I didn't finish. I went for 3 years. I was probably the most highly trained medical guy on the fire department, but I kept it to myself. I
never knew when I worked on the ambulance.
I let paramedics do their job.
You could have jumped in and helped out occasionally. I don't remember any.
I tried to be a big help on the ambulance, but I didn't overstep my bounds. I was an EMT, you know.
Well, I'll put it this way. We didn't get to ride a whole lot. We rode a handful of times on an ambulance, and I was always one that, you know, I'm telling you something, you know, and other people out there, if you've never worked in the career field, you may not understand this, but especially in Memphis, but then other big cities, you run so many calls that you could easily become jaded. You could become resentful when the tones go off and you don't want to do your job, and then you end up missing something on a serious call, and that's detrimental to the patient, obviously. And so everything playing off of what you said, keeping a positive mindset, having a good nature about you is important in everyday life. And that helps prepare you for moments that come up. And the truth is, there were days I didn't feel the best, but I knew I had to give my best every time I was on that ambulance.
That's right.
And so riding with you, I don't have a lot of memories of stuff because I just kept every day similar to the last. You know, I had a good attitude, tried to stay positive, try to embrace the moment, go through things. So now that I never knew that you'd been through so much medical school, I'm curious to know what your opinion is of the call that we made with the guy in the red suit.
Oh, that guy. That's one that I will never forget. You know, you have memories from that ambulance.
You do.
And I always kept a positive. I wasn't one of those that resented the ambulance. I looked at it was my job, and it was a chance to help your community, and I always try to make fun, have fun doing it, and doing a good job. But there's some that stick in your mind. I could write a book probably on some of the calls we made. But that night I was with you, we were on Unit 6. You know, that thing doesn't play.
No, you're running. You're running.
That thing will kick you.
Giddy up.
Yeah. You better keep a positive attitude.
That's right.
Because you see enough negative you have to try to balance it out. But it's a busy unit, and so Chris and I had taken a beating on that ambulance, and it was like 2 a.m. and we get an alpha call, which means you don't run lights and sirens.
No, it's pretty simple.
Pretty simple. Ease over there, and so we got in the ambulance, and we just got back to the station after a run, and so we head out. The call was on Mallory Street.
You remember more than I do about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I got a memory for things that happened.
I remember the area, but I didn't know it was on Mallory. That's good.
Yeah, for details. And I've always had a memory for details of things that happened to me. So anyway, the address they gave us was the MAPCO station. They dispatched us to the MAPCO station on Mallory. And on the way over there, I said, Chris, those numbers don't add up. I said, I think that's the BP station before we get to MAPCO. And you said, well, let's stop and see. So we stopped at the BP station, and we sat out there, and we didn't see a patient. Nobody hailed us. Nobody came out. And I said, well, maybe it is the MAPCO. So we drove to MAPCO. We drove around it, went inside, no patient. I said, those numbers are the BP. Let's go back. So we went back to the BP station, and we pulled up out there, and this guy in a red jacket and a red top hat. It's a real character.
Cannot make this stuff up.
No.
It's incredible.
He looked like he'd escaped from a circus.
He was the ringmaster guy, right?
Yeah. And so he comes out, and he does a couple of jumping jacks at the door of the BP station, and then he comes sprinting towards the ambulance. By this time, we're outside, and he sprinted up to you, and you said, did you call an ambulance? And he said, yeah. Chris says, what's the problem? He says, my leg's hurting. Chris says, well, how long have you had leg pain? And he says, since the Vietnam War. So here we were tired, and now we're going to get called out for a guy that's had leg pain for 45
40 years. I was saying, it's like, wow, man, I'm glad we're doing something at this hour. This is a good time to do it.
Yeah. So you look at your watch, you know, at this hour, you're going to call for an ambulance because you've had leg pain for 40 years. So, but we had good attitudes. We didn't bust the guy's chops, but Chris was real clever. Chris says, I said, well, what hospital do you go to? And he says, Veterans Hospital. And Chris says, okay, well, we got a problem here. Said, we were dispatched to the MAPCO. and we can't transport you from the BP station. You're going to have to walk to the MAPCO station, and we'll pick you up down there. The guy's eyes got real big, and he says, oh, man. He said, I got to walk all the way down there. I said, well, he said, if we transport you from here, we'll lose our jobs. And he says, oh, man. He said, look, we don't have to tell anybody. And Chris says, well, I don't want to lose my job. He said, how about you, Lynn? You want to lose your job? I said, no, I got to have this job. And he said, well, I guess I'll have to walk. Well, of course, we weren't going to let the guy walk.
Sure, just having some fun.
We were just having fun with the guy. Chris has a great sense of humor. So we stopped the guy before he took more than a couple of steps.
Yeah. I was like, come on, man, just don't tell anybody. We got to keep this on the down. He's like, all right, I will.
The guy thought for sure he was going to have to walk to the MAPCO, though.
Yeah. Just moments like that, though, it seems like just a passing moment, but it does create a fun memory. And think about the alternative. And I've seen several medics, they would take a call like that and they would be rude to the person. They'd be angry about the situation.
Right.
And there's no need for any of that.
No
need for that.
We didn't say a harsh thing to that fella.
In fact, we had a great conversation on the way to the hospital. I do remember talking to him quite a bit because I asked him about his outfit and stuff. And it's just that call. I made over 6,000 calls. I wrote every call down I made in Memphis. 6,216.
Wow.
I actually wrote every single call down.
Wow.
And I don't know what number he was in the lineup, but it's funny because some calls I can remember a lot of details on as well. It's just the moment. And you don't even know it's going to be a moment at the time.
Right.
So we had some good years. When did you leave the fire department?
In 2018, in September. I'd been in a 7-year battle with cancer.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't 7 years at the time. I'd been in a 1.5-year battle with cancer. I used up 3,500 sick hours, and I decided just to go ahead and retire.
Did they say that was possibly from firefighting, the cancer?
Yeah, actually, I was involved. I had some environmental lawyers from Washington, and I think Birmingham and Washington had offices there, and they were environmental lawyers, and I was on their team, and they were. But I got a letter from them about 3 months ago saying that of all the cancers that they had listed initially, it was kidney cancer, bladder cancer, testicular cancer, and prostate cancer was caused by firefighting foam. Well, my lawyers wrote me a letter and said they'd taken bladder cancer out of the list. I don't know why, but so now I'm not in the litigation anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's malarkey.
Is
the word I will use.
I'm thinking lawyers might have negotiated out one of the things so it would lessen the pot of people collecting the money.
Possibly so. It is one of the realities, unfortunate realities of firefighting. You spend enough years doing it, you're exposed to enough chemicals. I've told my wife this several times, and I don't take it lightly. If I'm diagnosed with something, it won't be a shock in the sense of how did this happen.
Right.
We know where it comes from. Yeah. You spend enough years doing these things, you're going to get exposed to things. But, how are you doing with that?
I've been cancer-free twice, and then it seems to come back. It came back on me this past spring, and I went through cancer treatments. My last one was in July, and 6 weeks later I had a cystoscopy, and I was cancer-free. So I have another cystoscopy coming up in 2 weeks, and hopefully I'm still clear.
Yeah, praying for you on that one, sir.
But I was, that Brooks Road fire, I'm sure you've heard of it.
That was the first one there.
Really?
I was the first one that was told to pull up to the back door.
And, go charging in.
400 East Brooks Road. Chip Sneed saved my life.
Really?
Me and a handful of other guys were in that fire, and he came on the scene calling us out, and it wasn't long after we got out of there, the whole thing exploded.
Right.
And we were the first there and there for a long time, and several guys have gotten odd cancers from that. Yeah. So, again, I
was there.
The exposure from that.
Truck 19 was the first truck company in.
Okay.
And I heard that there was 22. I went to a class on firefighter cancer. I was still on the department, and the instructor was a victim himself, and he talked about how 21 people at the Brooks Road fire had contracted cancer since. And I raised my hand. I'd just been diagnosed. I said, "Make that 22," because I was there. So there's nothing to be done with that.
Nothing you can do about it.
That company's no longer in business. So
right, I was the first one up in that thing.
Yeah, well, thank
not
God.
My choice.
Thank God you're okay
so far. But my wife would argue. Yeah, she would say, I've never been okay.
Yeah.
But we keep plugging along, right?
Yeah,
and that's the key.
Yes, our wives keep our feet to the fire.
That's
true.
Sure. So with all the things that you could look at and say, man, woe is me. Look at all the bad that's taken place in my life. That's not who Lynn is. And just as we get to the finish line here, talk a little bit about some of the humanitarian efforts, because you are from that far east side of Tennessee that got hit so hard. North Carolina obviously hit super hard from Helene with all the flooding and everything. And so what are some of the things you were doing? Because I know that when we talked about you coming on and you mentioned something, I was like, I think people need to hear that part too, because you've never quit caring about your area. You've never quit trying to give back. So talk a little bit about that.
I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk about that. I've been really involved in it. When the flooding happened, I was up there for taking care of my sick mother. She's passed since. But I was there when the flood happened, when the hurricane hit. It did some damage on our farm. But we were higher ground, so we didn't get flooded. But on the news reports, you see that big bridge being wiped out. That's a mile and a half from our farm. And so my hometown, home county, was heavily involved. The whole Chucky River rose about 50 feet. There was 30 inches of rain in 8 hours. Wow. And, there's homes, a lot of people's homes are just gone. And the ones that aren't gone are really damaged. So anyway, I've been involved with it. We had put it on Facebook down here because I got a church family and I got a friend that goes to a different church, but they're connect. We know one another, and so she posted. A friend of mine posted on her Facebook about my efforts up there, and people started pouring money in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we've been able to make 2 huge loads, box truck loads of goods, supplies for those people. And we're still collecting. I've been while I was up there, they were ordering stuff and sending them to my mom's house, and then I would deliver them to the disaster relief thing.
Oh, good.
So it's been a big outpouring from the people in North Mississippi, and I want to thank them. It was they've been really generous. Yeah, now, we're going to be making another load next week.
Okay.
We went and collected some goods the other day, and getting ready for another trip up.
The way that podcasting works, of course, is there's a delay from recording to when it airs. So this will be airing in about mid-December. Do you think you guys will still be doing stuff then?
I've become friends with the people at this relief center, the church up there.
Let me ask this: is there a contact point or number? Because whenever people hear this, they could check in to see if they're still taking donations.
Right. Well, they can look at my Facebook page.
Lynn Miller?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a thing on there, and I've got my Venmo mentioned in there and my Cash App.
Okay.
And or they can just bring goods. We got Friendship Church of Christ here in DeSoto County that you can deliver stuff there, or Goodman Oaks Church of Christ.
Okay.
Or to the porch of this other friend that's involved with this. She goes to the Friendship Church. But we get updates, and for the reports I'm getting now is that this is an ongoing thing. It's going to be several more months.
I was thinking
there's people up there still don't have electricity. They're living in tents. The families, mother, father, children living in tents. Mm-hmm. We've taken a lot of heaters up there, and buddy heaters and propane, and but the people have been so generous, and God's hand. If we talk about God's hand has been in this so much. Mm-hmm. We're just His hands and feet. It's God. It's just been a phenomenal outpouring, and so many times I've seen God show up in my life while I'm doing this. If you got time,
I got all the time in the world, sir.
I had this one about 2 weeks ago. I've been going up in East Tennessee a lot, and I was up there, and I got a shipment to my mom's house of propane. No, camp stoves, because those people needed something to cook on, and so used some of the funds I had and ordered camp stoves. I had 10 of them, and I had some cash to buy propane, and I went to a guy who had a bunch of propane tanks, the 20-pounders I had that were empty, and I went over to this guy and I told him what I was doing while I was buying the propane, and he gave me a huge discount, so I was counting on paying $25 each to fill them up. He filled them up for $7.80. I thought, man, that's mighty generous. So I had cash left in my pocket from the propane money I'd set aside. So anyway, I take the 10. I was headed towards the disaster place with these 10 heaters, cook stoves, And I stopped at Lowe's. I said, I'm going to buy some more heaters with this money. Lowe's had them on sale. So I went in there and I put the first heater in a basket, and something told me, don't do that. So I put it back, and I went over there, and I showed up with these 10 heaters, and he said, what do you got? And I told him, he said, oh, wait, hold it. We got a woman here. She needed that. She's leaving with supplies for 5 families that are stranded. And the only thing we didn't have to give her was those stoves. And I said, great. So I ran her down. She was getting ready to leave, and she said she needed 5, and I said, here they are. And so she was so grateful, and she hugged my neck, and she said, this is the only thing on my list that I didn't get, and I'm so happy to have them. It was God's timing.
Yeah.
And she said, now if only we could find some gas money. She said our fire department was completely wiped out, but somebody donated some 4-wheelers and stuff so we could go take goods to people. And she said, but we don't have gas money.
You had pocket of cash?
I pulled out that $250 I had left. I said, here's you some gas money. And I almost spent that at Lowe's. But that stuff happened all the time. I would take a load to the place of stuff, and I'd get there, and they'd say, what you got? And I'd tell them, we need that on that helicopter right there. And they'd take it straight to the helicopter. So these things just happen over and over and over, the timing. And it's God. God's really pushing people to.
When you take action, doors will open.
That's right.
That is a fact.
Yeah. And, we pray, and people are praying for those people over there, and God's answering. You got to recognize when God answers. Yeah.
Well, look, people will get along a lot better when people help each other. We cannot stay isolated on our own little island. And I'll be honest with you, man, that the moments of tragedy, when you look back over the history of America, well, at least in my time, I can speak from the years I've been alive, all the way back to like 9/11, whenever I was a brand new paramedic. The tragedy is not defined by the hate. The tragedy is always defined by the love that you will see others come up, and they will band together. And that's one of the things about America that I absolutely love. I know we kind of deviate a little bit from your story, but all this is still relevant because it is a part of who you are, what you've done, your positivity, the things you've gone through, but that did not define you. And then in the end, here it is, you're still giving back. You're still a part of community, and you're showing that side of the country that, is a big part of who you are, the love that is needed right now.
Those mountain folks are my folks.
Absolutely.
Those are my roots.
Yeah.
And but this isn't about me. This is God at work.
That's great.
And the generosity of these people around North Mississippi, and I've had some firefighters really step up with some donations. And
that's awesome.
So I'm just happy to be a part of it, and blessed to be a part of it.
Well, I do appreciate you coming down to the studio, sharing your story. I know it's going to be impactful. People are going to be blown away by some of this. I mean, this is like real life drama stuff that you've escaped from. And now, look, you've gone on to do so many great things. You definitely served a purpose. 19 years old was not enough years on this earth for you, sir, obviously. No. And that is evident by all the things that you're still being able to be a part of. What would you leave my listeners with right now? If you have anything that you would like to say, close out the show with.
Go to church. Develop a relationship with God. It's the most important thing you'll do. He will not let you down. He will guide your path, and he'll keep you on a positive track in life. That would be my advice to anybody. Seek God, and he's always drawing us to him. You just got to be receptive and respond to his drawing.
It's easier said than done sometimes, but let go and let God has a lot of meaning to that. And when you do that, things do seem to open up and do a little better for you.
They do.
It's a true story. Lynn, I love you, brother. I appreciate you coming down to the studio, spending some time with me. It's good to see you again. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Yeah, it's great.
Keep up with you on Facebook. And look, thank you for being a supporter of the Coach Camp, Motivate with Coach Camp podcast and show, and all the stuff that we're doing out there to try to help community as well. And that's what this is all about, because we are always stronger together. Motivate with Coach Camp. And the with is so, so important, sir. And now you're a part of our family down here at Podcast World.
I'm honored to be there, and thank you for having me. I've had a good time.
Absolutely. And to my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to ask you, go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com, subscribe to my YouTube, continue to tune in, and until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the